Welcome to the channel, my alien friends. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Enjoy listening. Lawrence Mitchell sat in his repair pod, the familiar hum of the spacecraft filling the cabin. Outside, the vast blackness of space stretched endlessly, punctuated only by distant stars and the orbiting wreckage of a malfunctioning communication satellite. His task was simple: patch the damage, reboot the systems, and head back to the main station. But as he maneuvered through the floating debris, something unexpected flickered across his instruments, a sudden spike in electromagnetic activity. That can't be right, he muttered to himself, glancing down at the controls. The readings were erratic, patterns surging across the display in ways that defied explanation. "Houston, we've got a situation here." Lawrence called into the comms, trying to maintain his usual calm despite the anxiety creeping into his voice. "My readings are all over the place. The electromagnetic field around the satellite, it's unlike anything in our records." Static answered him. Just as he was about to repeat the message, the pod system screamed in protest. Lights blinked off and on, and a sharp whine pierced through the cabin, setting his nerves on edge. His hands flew across the emergency controls, fighting to stabilize the ship, but something was pulling, dragging him toward an unseen force. "Mayday! Mayday!" Lawrence's heart raced as the pod systems continued to fail, every safety mechanism useless. "I'm losing control." The stars blurred, stretching and distorting like molten glass. Then, out of nowhere, a brilliant azure light flooded the cockpit. Lawrence's stomach lurched as reality seemed to fold in on itself. The pod shot forward as if something was dragging it through a rip in space. He blinked against the searing blue light, but the sight that greeted him was impossible. A planet appeared. An alien world with crystalline mountains and vast forests of vibrant blue and green that shimmered under a sun he didn't recognize. The atmosphere itself glowed faintly purple, creating an ethereal veil over the alien landscape. His pod hurtled toward the surface, heat shields blazing as the craft tore through the atmosphere. Lawrence braced himself, every muscle tensing as the pod screamed toward impact. The ground rose up to meet him in a violent crash, metal screaming as the pod slammed into the alien soil. Then darkness. Consciousness returned slowly, his body aching, head throbbing. Lawrence groaned as he forced his eyes open, blinking against the soft alien light filtering through the pod's cracked window. He lay on something soft, impossibly soft. Moss, glowing faintly in the darkness, cushioned his battered form. His hands brushed against the phosphorescent strands as he tried to push himself up, every movement sending sharp jolts of pain through his limbs. As his vision cleared, he froze. They were watching him, beautiful, otherworldly figures, women but unlike any human women he had ever seen. Their skin shimmered with shades of azure and teal, some as deep as the ocean, others as light as the sky at dawn. They stood tall and graceful, their figures sleek and powerful, their eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. Lawrence felt his heart race, both in awe and confusion. These women were ethereal, as if shaped from light and air itself, their beauty both surreal and impossible. One stepped forward, her long silver-white hair cascading over her shoulders. Her eyes shimmered like amethyst and gold, shifting in the ambient light. She knelt beside him, holding up a small crystal device that hummed with energy. She spoke the language alien and melodic, like a song carried on the wind. Lawrence blinked, struggling to comprehend her words. Then, with a faint chime, the device in her hand activated. The sound was clear now, familiar. "Can you understand me now, Starfallen One?" Her voice was soft, but there was strength in it. Lawrence's mind swam, fighting through the disorientation. "Yes, but how?" She smiled, her teeth gleaming faintly with their own inner light. "The universal translator," she said, as if it were the simplest explanation in the world. "We call it the voice bridge. I am Arona, daughter of the Twilight clan. You have landed on Moria, though many know it as Aura. Your arrival is significant." Lawrence forced himself to sit up, his body protesting with every move. His engineer's mind raced, trying to make sense of the situation. He had crashed on an alien planet, surrounded by beings who looked too perfect to be real, and they spoke of his arrival as if it were foretold. "Significant?" he echoed, squinting at Arona. "I think there's been a mistake. I'm just an engineer who got pulled into something, some kind of anomaly." Before she could respond, another woman stepped forward, her presence commanding. Her skin was a deep azure, adorned with intricate patterns that seemed to shimmer and shift as she moved. Authority radiated from her as she regarded him with a calculating gaze. "I am Tria, elder of the Southern clans. she announced, her voice carrying the weight of power. The prophecies have spoken. The star-fallen one arrives as darkness gathers. Prophecies. Lawrence frowned. Look, I appreciate the welcome, but I think you've got the wrong guy. I don't belong here. I need to contact my people, fix my pod. A cold laugh interrupted him. The crowd parted to reveal a tall, pale blue figure with eyes like frozen glaciers. His presence radiated danger, each step calculated and precise. He was not like the others. There was something darker in his bearing. Indeed, the man's voice cut through the air like ice. A mistake. Arona stiffened beside Lawrence, whispering, Nord, champion of the Frost Valleys. Ambitious. Dangerous. Nord's icy gaze swept dismissively over Lawrence. You expect this outsider to fulfill the prophecy. The trial of ascension approaches, and you would consider him worthy. The trial? Lawrence asked, feeling a rising dread. It determines our next leader, Arona explained quickly, her voice low. But Nord fears you. The prophecy threatens his claim to power. I'm not claiming anything, Lawrence protested, rising unsteadily to his feet. I just want to go home. But even as he spoke, another figure approached. Two women draped in shimmering robes that seemed to glow with their own light. They regarded him with ancient eyes, wisdom in their measured steps. Your vessel is beyond salvation, one of them said with quiet finality. You cannot return through the veil. The prophecy is already in motion, the other added. You have initiated the trial. Lawrence's head spun. None of this made any sense. He was just an astronaut stranded on an alien world. But as he glanced around at the crystal mountains, the alien sun, the women watching him expectantly, and the cold gaze of Nord, reality pressed down on him. He had stumbled into something far bigger than he could understand, and there was no turning back. The sky over Moria deepened into twilight, the soft hues of purple and indigo blending with the alien world's 3 moons rising above crystalline spires. Lawrence stood in the center of a massive amphitheater carved from living stone, his heart pounding against his rib cage as the weight of his situation pressed down on him. Above him, the alien crowd murmured in anticipation, eyes glowing softly in the fading light as they waited for the trial to begin. Tria, the elder of the southern clans, stood at his side, her expression unreadable, but her words weighted with meaning. The trial of ascension, she said quietly, her voice barely above a whisper, is a sacred tradition. The 3 tests you face, grace, wisdom, and strength, will determine whether you are worthy of leading our people. Each test reflects our values, our soul. Lawrence swallowed hard, eyes flicking nervously to the alien crowd. His mind still rebelled against the idea that any of this was real. He wasn't a warrior or some mythical savior. He was an engineer, a man of science, and yet here he was, forced into an ancient prophecy, surrounded by beings more advanced, more graceful, more alien than he could ever hope to understand. To his right, Nord stood silently, his gaze icy and filled with contempt. The Frost Valley champion exuded confidence, his pale skin almost shimmering in the alien moonlight. He had no doubt trained his entire life for this moment. Lawrence, on the other hand, had no idea what awaited him. Shriya's hand on his arm was firm but gentle. Do not doubt yourselves, Starfallen One. The first test is of grace. Move in harmony with the world around you. It is not about perfection, but balance. A sudden chime echoed through the amphitheater, the crowd silencing as the trial began. Lawrence took a deep breath, steadying himself. The low gravity of Moria was familiar now, the weightlessness similar to spacewalks he had performed countless times back in the cold void of space. That, at least, was a comfort. Arona shimmered as the crystalline ground shifted beneath him, rearranging into an intricate pattern of glowing lines and symbols. The test had begun. Across the amphitheater, Nord moved with predatory grace, his movements sharp and deliberate as he navigated the shifting terrain. His fluidity was mesmerizing, each step precise, each movement calculated. The crowd watched with bated breath as the Frost Valley champion danced through the illuminated patterns, his body a blur of controlled power. Lawrence hesitated. There was no way he could compete with that level of perfection. But then he remembered Aroma's words. The trial wasn't about perfection. It was about harmony, balance. He closed his eyes, exhaling slowly. The low gravity was his ally here, just like it had been in space. His training kicked in, his mind recalling years of precise maneuvers outside spacecraft where the slightest mistake could mean death. It wasn't about force. It was about flow. He began to move, awkwardly at first, then with more confidence. His steps became smoother, more natural, his body adjusting to the rhythm of the changing ground beneath him. His years of working in zero gravity allowed him to glide across the arena with a grace that surprised even him. Every twist, every turn was measured and deliberate, his movements reminiscent of the precise coordination required during spacewalks. The alien crowd gasped, murmurs rippling through them. Lawrence felt their eyes on him, not with scorn or disbelief, but with something akin to curiosity. Even Nord, who had been gliding effortlessly through the trial, cast a glance his way, the faintest trace of surprise flickering in his cold gaze. By the time the trial ended, Lawrence's chest heaved with exertion, but he had done it. He had moved through the test without faltering, without losing control. It wasn't elegant, but it was enough. You move with the balance of one who understands the void between worlds. Arona whispered beside him as the trial concluded. A good omen. Nord, for his part, barely acknowledged Lawrence's success. His eyes were already fixed on the next challenge, the test of wisdom. As they moved to the crystalline chamber of wisdom, Lawrence's nerves flared again. The trial of grace had been physical, something he could adapt to with his space training. But wisdom, how could he, a stranger to their world, hope to understand the depths of their ancient culture? Tria's voice broke into his thoughts as they entered the chamber. This trial is more than intellect. It tests the heart of leadership, your ability to make decisions for the greater good. You must show insight beyond mere knowledge. The walls shimmered with light as holographic symbols swirled around him. A riddle appeared, ancient and profound. In a world where resources dwindle, do you choose to save yourself and those close to you, or sacrifice for the survival of all? Lawrence's heart pounded. This was no simple test of puzzles or calculations. It was a moral dilemma, one that mirrored the challenges his own world had faced. Climate change, resource wars, the ever-present choice between self-preservation and collective survival. He thought of the alien women, their eyes full of hope, and the fragile balance of life on this planet. I would sacrifice personal gain for the greater good, he answered aloud, his voice steady. The survival of the many outweighs the comfort of the few. The symbols dimmed, acknowledging his answer. The crowd murmured in approval. Even Nord remained silent, his lips pressed into a thin line as the test shifted toward the final challenge, strength. But this trial, Lawrence knew, would not be as simple as brute force. Strength here meant something else, something more dangerous. As the ground pulsed beneath him, leading him into the arena of crystal pillars, he realized this was where the real battle would begin. The 3 moons of Moria hung high in the sky, casting a pale ethereal glow over the crystal forests. Lawrence stood on a high ridge overlooking the Frost Valley, the wind sharp and biting against his skin. Beside him, Arona remained silent, her silver hair flowing like liquid moonlight. The distant peaks glimmered, their icy beauty masking the rot festering beneath the surface of the valley. Tonight, Lawrence was about to uncover the true depth of the treachery threatening not only his life, but the future of the entire planet. I don't like this, Arona whispered, her voice low and tense. Nord's been too quiet since the trials. Something is brewing. Lawrence nodded, his eyes narrowing at the flicker of lights in the valley below. Ever since the trial of strength, where Lawrence had narrowly held his own against Nord's icy power, the Frost Valley champion had retreated into the shadows, his cold gaze harboring a silent fury. Lawrence had won the grace and wisdom trials, but Nord had not conceded defeat. Instead, he had disappeared, taking his loyal followers with him. The uneasy calm that followed was more chilling than the fiercest storm. I thought winning the trials would be the end of it, Lawrence muttered, more to himself than to Arona. But it feels like I'm just at the beginning of something far more dangerous. It was never just about the trials, Arona said, her expression dark. The power Nord seeks runs deeper than any single competition. His ambition threatens everything. Suddenly, a soft humming filled the air. Lawrence tensed instinctively, crouching lower as a sleek black shape appeared in the sky, its engines silent and its form blending into the night. A ship not from Moria. It descended into the valley with precision, landing between the ice-covered rocks like a dark phantom. Slavers, Arona whispered, her face tightening with fear and disgust. I knew it. Lawrence's blood ran cold. He had heard rumors of off-world slavers, the dregs of the galaxy who traded in flesh and misery. But seeing them here on Moria was something else entirely. His mind raced. Nord has been dealing with these monsters. What are they doing here? Lawrence hissed, his stomach twisting at the implications. Aruma's eyes darkened. For years, we've suspected Nord's clan of making secret deals with outsiders, but we could never prove it. Until now. Lawrence's heart pounded in his chest as he watched the ship's crew disembark. Tall figures in dark armor, their faces hidden behind expressionless helmets, moved with cold efficiency. But his attention was fixed on one figure in particular. Nord, the Frost Valley champion, emerged from the shadows to meet the slavers, his posture tense but deferential. He wasn't leading them, he was serving them. Bile rose in Lawrence's throat. He's selling out his own people. Why? Arona turned to him, her expression grave. Power. For years, the Frost clan has been slowly poisoning our bloodlines, manipulating the balance of our births to weaken the other clans. They've made themselves indispensable by turning our survival into a transaction. Now, Nord's final move is clear. He plans to trade us, the women of Moria, as commodities in exchange for his own power. The sheer enormity of the betrayal hit Lawrence like a punch to the gut. Nord wasn't just a rival in the trials, he was a traitor of the worst kind. He was willing to sacrifice the future of his entire race for his own ambitions. We need to stop him, Lawrence said, his voice shaking with anger. We need to expose him. Not yet, Arona whispered, her hand gripping his arm. If we reveal ourselves now, we'll be killed, and our proof will vanish with us. We need evidence, something undeniable. The tension in the air was palpable as they watched the exchange below. Nord gestured angrily at the slavers, his pale face a mask of frustration. Whatever deal they had struck, it wasn't going smoothly. But Lawrence could feel the desperation radiating off Nord. He was losing control. We'll gather more evidence, Lawrence said, his mind racing. We need to show the council. If we can prove Nord's dealing with slavers, it'll destroy his entire claim to power. Arona nodded. I'll lead you through the crystal caves. It's the only way to avoid Nord's patrols. They moved quickly, slipping into the shadows of the crystalline landscape, their footsteps silent on the cold ground. Lawrence's thoughts churned as they descended deeper into the caves, the weight of their discovery pressing down on him. He had come to Moria by accident, thrust into a prophecy he didn't understand, but now it was more than that. This wasn't just a fight for leadership. It was a fight for the survival of an entire people. As they reached the heart of the caves, the flickering glow of the crystals illuminated Arona's determined face. She paused, turning to Lawrence with a solemn expression. You have more than proven yourself in the trials, Starfallen One, she said softly. But this will be the true test. Nord's betrayal runs deep. It has already poisoned the minds of many. But if we expose him, if we show the truth, we can save Moria from falling into darkness. Lawrence met her gaze, feeling the weight of the responsibility pressing down on his shoulders. He had been thrown into this world by chance, but now he had something to fight for, something bigger than himself. The people of Moria were on the brink of extinction, and Nord was ready to sell them into a fate worse than death. We'll stop him, Lawrence vowed, his voice low and fierce. Whatever it takes. As they disappeared deeper into the crystal caves, the icy wind howled through the valley, carrying with it the chill of treachery. But Lawrence knew that soon the truth would come to light, and with it, the downfall of the Frost clan's dark ambitions. The Temple of Moria glowed in the rising light of the three moons, its crystalline spires shimmering with an ethereal brilliance. Inside, the air was heavy with expectation and tension, every whisper echoing off the vaulted walls. Lawrence stood at the center of the great hall, surrounded by the alien women whose lives now seemed inexplicably intertwined with his own. The weight of their gazes pressed down on him, but it was not just their beauty that struck him. It was the hope, the fear, and the uncertainty lurking beneath their calm exteriors. Tria, the elder of the southern clans, approached him with slow, measured steps. Her azure skin glimmered under the temple's lights, her regal presence commanding attention. In her hands, she held an ancient scroll, its edges frayed and its symbols glowing faintly with an otherworldly light. This is the prophecy, she said, her voice a soft echo that resonated through the chamber. The one that foretold your arrival. Lawrence shifted uneasily. He had heard of the prophecy before, had felt its influence shaping every moment since he crashed onto this strange alien world. But now, standing before the very words that had guided this civilization for generations, he felt its power in a new way. Tria unrolled the scroll, revealing intricate alien glyphs that pulsed with a rhythm that felt almost alive. Her eyes never left his as she spoke. The Starfallen One will arrive as darkness gathers. He will be tested by the forces of grace, wisdom, and strength. Through his triumph, the balance of our people will be restored or broken. Lawrence's breath caught in his throat. Or broken. The prophecy is not absolute, Tria replied, her gaze steady but troubled. It speaks of a choice, a moment when the one who arrives from the stars must decide the fate of our world. You, Lawrence, hold the future of Moria in your hands. But there are those who would twist that future to their will, those like Nord, who seek power not for the good of our people, but for domination. The mention of Nord sent a chill down Lawrence's spine. He could still see the cold, calculating look in the Frost Clan champion's eyes when they last met in the arena. Even in defeat, Nord's ambition burned with dangerous intensity. Lawrence had no doubt that the man was plotting something, waiting for the perfect moment to strike again. I didn't ask for this, Lawrence said, his voice tinged with frustration. I never wanted to be part of any prophecy. I just want to fix my pod and get back to Earth. You are not here by accident, Lawrence, Tria said firmly. The stars brought you to us for a reason. The trials you've faced, the bond you've begun to form with our people, it all means something. Whether you believe in the prophecy or not, the power you hold is undeniable. Arona, standing beside him, laid a gentle hand on his arm. Her touch was cool, but there was warmth in her eyes. You've already changed the course of our history, Lawrence. You've seen the truth of Nord's betrayal, the slavers, the genetic manipulation. It's all part of a larger plan to break us from within. Lawrence's mind raced, the enormity of the situation pressing down on him. He wasn't just an outsider anymore. He wasn't just a lost astronaut. He was something more, something that could decide the fate of an entire world. The Frost Valley clan's corruption runs deep, Tria continued, her voice low but urgent. For years, they've poisoned our people's future, weakening our genetic lines and pushing us toward extinction. Nord's dealings with the slavers were just the final step in his plan to seize absolute power. He wants to control the future by selling it to the highest bidder. We need to expose him, Lawrence said, his jaw tightening with resolve. We need to show the council, the clans, everyone what Nord has been doing. Tria nodded, her expression serious. We will, but it won't be easy. Nord's influence has spread like a shadow over Moria. There are those who still believe in him, who think his way is the only way to survive. If we are to defeat him, we must unite the clans under one banner, under your banner. Lawrence's heart skipped a beat. My banner? You are the one the prophecy speaks of, Arona said softly. The one who will lead us through this darkness. You've already proven yourself in the trials, Lawrence. Now you must prove yourself as a leader. The word hung in the air, heavy and daunting. Lawrence had never seen himself as a leader. He was an engineer, a man of logic and practicality, not a ruler. But here, in this strange world, among these extraordinary people, he felt something stir within him, a sense of responsibility, of purpose. These women, this world, were looking to him for guidance, for salvation. Tria's eyes softened as she regarded him. You do not have to be perfect, Starfallen One. You only have to be willing. The path ahead will be difficult, but you will not walk it alone. Lawrence glanced at Arona, Tria, and the other women who stood beside him, their expressions a mix of hope and determination. For the first time since he arrived on Moria, he felt a flicker of something he had not expected, belonging. The weight of the prophecy was heavy, but so was the potential for a future he had never imagined. And as the moons of Moria rose higher, casting their light over the great hall, Lawrence made his decision. He would lead. But first, they would have to confront the shadow lurking in the Frost Valley. The air around the Temple of Moria crackled with tension. Dark clouds churned overhead, the three moons shrouded in a forbidding haze. Lawrence stood at the temple's highest spire, looking down over the land he had come to know so well. The crystalline beauty of Moria, with its glowing forests and gleaming peaks, now felt fragile on the edge of ruin. Below, the clans moved with purpose, preparing for the coming storm. Warriors sharpened their weapons, their faces hard with resolve. Elders conferred in hushed tones, their eyes filled with fear and determination. And in the distance, beyond the Crystal Mountains, the first signs of invasion were visible. Dark shapes on the horizon, ships descending from the sky like predators ready to tear into the heart of this world. Nord had made his move. They're coming, Arona whispered at Lawrence's side, her silver hair caught in the wind, her eyes narrowing as she gazed toward the descending ships. The slavers are here. Lawrence's stomach twisted with dread. They had known this was coming ever since they uncovered Nord's treachery. His secret deals with the off-world slavers who planned to strip Moria of its people, turning the women into commodities for sale across the galaxy. The discovery had rocked the clans, sparking outrage but also fear. Now, Nord had thrown off any pretense of allegiance to his people. He had brought the slavers in force, determined to claim victory by any means necessary. "We're outnumbered," Lawrence said grimly, his fists clenched at his sides. "We can't fight them head-on." "We don't have to." Aisha's voice cut through the tension as she approached, her tall warrior form radiating strength. Her blue skin gleamed in the dim light, muscles tense beneath her armor. "We fight on our terms. Use the terrain, the crystal spires, the caves. We know this land better than they do." Asia's confidence was reassuring, but Lawrence couldn't shake the gnawing doubt in his chest. These slavers weren't just any enemies. They were organized, ruthless, armed with advanced technology that Moria's clans had never seen before. Even with Asia's warriors, even with the unity they had begun to build, the odds were stacked against them. "We'd sent word to the other clans," Tria added, joining them. The elder's face was calm, but her voice carried a weight of urgency. "They will come. We must hold the line until then." Hold the line. Lawrence's mind raced, trying to calculate their next move. His background as an engineer told him to think tactically, to assess the strengths and weaknesses of their position. The crystal spires that surrounded the temple were more than just beautiful. They were powerful. He had learned that in the days after the trials, as he studied Moria's unique structures. The crystals pulsed with energy connected to the very lifeblood of the planet. They could be harnessed, manipulated. He turned to Ella, who stood nearby, her healer robes billowing in the wind. "Ella, the crystal formations. You said they react to our presence. Could we use them to our advantage, to amplify energy or create barriers?" Her eyes widened, the wheels in her mind spinning. "It's possible. The crystals resonate with the energy of the people. They've always been a source of protection and power, but we've never used them like that before. Not in battle." "We may not have a choice," Lawrence said, his voice hardening with resolve. "If we can channel that energy, we might be able to create a shield, something to slow them down, give us time." Asia's lips curled into a fierce smile. "A shield, that could work. It would buy us the time we need for the other clans to arrive." Lawrence nodded. The plan was risky, but it was their only hope. The slaver ships were drawing closer, their dark, predatory forms looming on the horizon. They had to act now. "Get everyone ready," Lawrence ordered, his voice carrying across the temple grounds. "We hold them here. We hold them, or we lose everything." The moments that followed were a blur of preparation. Lawrence worked side by side with Ella, Arona, and the other clan members to harness the crystal's energy, placing key resonators at strategic points around the temple. Asia and her warriors took their positions, ready to strike at the first sign of attack. The tension in the air was palpable, every breath heavy with the knowledge of what was to come. Then the first explosion rocked the temple. The ground trembled as the slaver ships fired on the crystalline spires, sending shards of glowing rock flying through the air. The temple's shields flared to life, a shimmering dome of light surrounding the sacred ground. But Lawrence knew it wouldn't hold forever. The slavers were relentless, their ships pounding the shield with wave after wave of energy blasts. "They're testing our defenses," Asia growled, her eyes fixed on the enemy, looking for weaknesses. Lawrence's heart raced as the shield flickered, cracks appearing in the energy barrier. "It's not going to last," he said, his voice tight. "We need to hit them before it falls." Without hesitation, Asia's warriors sprang into action. They moved with the grace and precision of predators, using the terrain to their advantage. Crystal formations erupted in brilliant flashes of light as the warriors struck from the shadows, disorienting the enemy and cutting down slavers with deadly efficiency. But the enemy was vast, and for every slaver they felled, more poured from the ships, their armor gleaming under the alien moons. Lawrence ducked behind a crystal outcropping, sweat beading on his forehead as he recalculated their chances. They couldn't keep this up forever. They needed more time. "Lawrence!" Arona's voice rang out, urgent. She raced toward him, her eyes wide with fear. "The archives. Nord's heading for the archives. If he destroys them, we'll lose everything. The genetic records, the proof of his betrayal. Everything." Lawrence's blood ran cold. The archives held the key to everything they had fought for, the evidence that would unite the clans against Nord, the genetic data that could save Moria's future. If Nord destroyed them, all hope would be lost. He turned to Asia, his voice sharp. "I'm going after him. Cover me." She nodded, her eyes fierce. "Go, we'll hold them." Without another word, Lawrence sprinted toward the temple's inner sanctum, his heart pounding in his chest. The sounds of battle raged around him. Shouts, explosions, the clash of weapons against armor. But all that mattered now was reaching the archives before it was too late. As he reached the entrance, his worst fears were confirmed. Nord stood at the threshold, flanked by mercenaries, his pale blue skin glowing faintly in the dim light. His eyes gleamed with cold triumph. "You should have stayed out of this. Starfall M1," Nord sneered, his voice dripping with malice. "Now it's too late." Lawrence's hands clenched into fists. "You betrayed your own people, Nord. You sold them out to the highest bidder, but it ends here." Nord's smile twisted into something cruel. "We'll see." The final battle was about to begin, and Lawrence knew the fate of Moria hung in the balance. The morning after the battle, a deep, eerie stillness settled over the Temple of Moria. The once pristine crystalline spires, now marred by cracks and scorch marks, still glowed faintly in the early dawn light. Lawrence stood at the highest balcony of the temple, overlooking the vast expanse of land below, his new home. The battle for Moria was over, but the weight of what had just transpired hung heavily on his shoulders, a reminder that victory always came with a cost. He could still see the remnants of the battle in the distance, crashed ships half buried in the soft azure earth, the scattered wreckage of Nord's mercenaries, and the faint smoke rising from where the slavers had retreated. The Clan had won the day, driving the invaders from their world. But the price had been high. Lives had been lost, and the scars of the siege would remain etched into the land and into the hearts of its people. Yet, as he stood there, breathing in the cool air, Lawrence knew the greatest battle had only just begun. Behind him, the soft sound of footsteps caught his attention. Ella approached, her blue skin glowing softly in the early light, her healer robe swaying with each step. She had been tireless through the night, tending to the wounded, her face etched with exhaustion. But when she met his gaze, there was something else in her eyes, relief and perhaps a new kind of hope. "We've secured the archives," she said, her voice quiet yet strong. "The genetic records are safe thanks to you. The damage Mord caused can be undone." Lawrence turned to her, his mind heavy with the enormity of what she had just said. The archives, the genetic data, everything they had fought to protect was more than just a symbol of Moria's past. It was their future, the future he now held in his hands. "You studied the data," Lawrence said, his voice low, barely above a whisper. "The genetic manipulation Nord was using. How bad is it?" Ella stepped closer, her eyes softening. "It's worse than we imagined. For generations, they've been quietly sabotaging our genetic line, tipping the balance so that fewer males are born. Without outside help, our people would have eventually faced extinction." The word hung in the air like a death sentence. Extinction. Lawrence's breath caught in his throat. The weight of it all pressed down on him like a physical force. Moria's people had been betrayed, not just by one man, but by an entire system.